is a very rarely used model in this part of the world, particularly, actually except South Africa and Egypt. Most of the rest of Africa, we call it a franchise jungle. Yeah. But it is time, I'm happy that the EAC has taken interest in this area, and therefore it's time for us now to do what's necessary to kickstart franchising. But what is franchising then? Even before I talk about what franchising is, we are saying, let's look at the African economies at a glance. We are saying that Africa, very, very soon, will have what we're calling the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. We know that. But we know what it contains. And this is going to be effective July this year. We are saying the Africa will be one single market of 1.2 billion people. Yeah, that's most, nearly more like India, isn't it? One single market of 1.2 billion people. Very, very big market, isn't it? Even if you're selling a pin, you can imagine selling a pin at a shilling each, and everyone in the continent buys that pin. You have 1.2 billion. It's a huge, huge market. And we're also saying to have a combined GDP of at least $3.4 trillion. Big money. Yeah, big economy. And it will be the third largest trading bloc by number of countries since the formation of the World Trade Organization. Okay? And that will also place it as the world's 8th largest economy. What does that have to do with what we are talking about here in terms of military trade and distribution services? If you are in business and you'd want to access this market of 1.2 billion people, and you only want to use your normal brick and mortar model that you have been used to, opening up in Kirinyaga from Nairobi, opening up in Kampala from Nairobi, because it's just across the border here. When will you ever reach the whole of Africa? Yeah? If you go back to the slides that were here when Agatha was presenting, she mentioned the retail giants that are in the sector today. The Carrefours, the Games, the ShopRites, the Shoppies, the Woolworths. Then the Kenyan side, there was the Tuskys, the Fallen Uchumis, the Fallen Nakumats, the Naivas. Now, it is not by mistake that the largest players in this market all operate under the franchise model. All those ones that I mentioned, like in the Carrefours, the Shoppies, the ShopRites, the Game, all of them, without exception, operate under the franchise model. Because over the years, franchising has grown to be the easiest way to grow businesses. Actually, as we keep saying, franchising is both a distribution and a growth model. So it is time that we start thinking how we can take our African businesses to this level, particularly if we have to take advantage of the upcoming free trade area. The current situation in Africa, a recent report by World Bank says there are about 445 million medium, small, the micro, small, and medium enterprises across Africa. And out of those, only 30 million are formal. Can you believe that? Out of 445, only 30 million are formal. So it leaves out the how many more? 400 and what? 15? And then you can see that wherever you come from, Kampala, I'm sure. Wherever you come from, look around the corner, anywhere. Yeah? Any one of you have been to Lagos, you can see the chaos that is there. Yeah? Even in our own countries here. Yeah? But do you think, is there any way any of these guys operating along the corridors or along the roads Is there any way they'll be able to access this market?
No.
If they continue that way?
No.
So that is why this intervention is very, very important. Again, if you look at the big picture in Africa, the same report says there are about 700 big corporates in Africa. On how many? 700. The big corporates, the big cores and so on. You know them, eh? The EAIs and so on. Eh? Only 700 in Africa. And now the tragedy is that all of them are concentrated either in Egypt or South Africa. With only how many? 49 in East Africa. Now, how do we then move that micro player operating along the streets of Nairobi to access this big market? This is where franchising comes in. So what is franchising and how does it work? We say franchising is a business model where you are in business for yourself but not by yourself. And think through those words very carefully. You are in business for yourself but not by yourself. What that means is, or maybe just let me explain more by saying, a business with a tried, tested, and trusted brand allows another, usually with zero experience, to run on its systems, intellectual property, to distribute specific goods and services over an agreed period of time in exchange for payment of an agreed joining fee and ongoing fees. That is basically what franchising is all about. Okay? Tried, tested, trusted. Tried, tested, trusted. So if you think through that, we're saying franchising is all about duplication and scaling of businesses. You basically photocopy yourself. Yeah? You photocopy your success into your next door neighbor, so that then the brand grows. And over the years, franchising has proven to be the best model to grow businesses quickly and cheaply. Why? Cheaply, number one, because the big brand will no longer need to invest in West Africa when it starts franchising. It will look for a person in West Africa with the ability to invest in their systems, in their outlets, but they must follow the standards of this big brand. Are we together? So who invests? We are calling him the franchisee. The one being allowed to use a bigger brand is called the franchisee. The one giving the brand is called the franchisor. Okay? So the franchisor invests in proving the concept. Okay? Making sure that the systems are running properly. Then it comes a time now that they are ready, and they got to now multiply themselves through what you can easily call photocopy and paste. Yeah? You basically just plug in and play those inexperienced businesses wherever you go. So that way we are saying it's cheap to operate. It also allows very, very rapid growth. If you're opening branches of your own, it's unlikely that you can open 6 branches in 1 year. Bwana engineer, true? I'm sure you've been in the other business that you are in. How many would you possibly open? It's very difficult. But in franchising, we say the first 1 year, you can open up to 6 outlets. Don't go beyond 6 because you are learning, and there's a learning curve in any business. As you start franchising, open only up to 6. Now the next year you already know how to do it better, so you can go up to 10. You already have 16 outlets. From there now you can roll out as many as you wish. And that explains why one of the biggest brands in franchising is Subway. Subway has over 42,000 outlets across the world in over 100 different countries. Coca-Cola, you know them. You know Coca-Cola. Did you know that Coca-Cola has 800 factories across the world, and that is why in the corner of the world you find a Coke. Yeah? However, they only own one out of the 800 factories. As the Coca-Cola company, they only own one. All the rest are franchised. Okay? So this model allows people to be able to do business because it's a win-win game. Yeah? You make money as a franchisee, at the same time I also make money from your efforts. Are we together? So the more you multiply yourself, the more money you are actually likely to make. Okay, it's not as simple as that. It's a very technical area. There are things that need to be put in place, and that's why we exist as consultants to do that. If you look at the global picture of franchising, by the time I finish this presentation, probably 4 franchise outlets would have opened somewhere in the US. In the US, every 8 minutes of a business day, a new franchise opens. Can you believe that? Every 8 minutes, a new franchise opens. In the US, 50% of the retail trade, here we are talking retail, 50% of retail trade goes through the franchising sector. Here we are busy competing to open our own outlets. Yeah. China grows at a rate of, as an economy, nowadays they are below 10, they're about 8-9%, isn't it? But in China, the franchising sector consistently has grown over the last 5 years. It has consistently grown at between 50 and 60% every year, to a point where China has now overtaken the US as the world's leading franchise market. What does that mean? There are over 10,000 franchise brands actually across the world, but only 3% of them are in Africa. Only 3% of 10,000. What would that be? Negligible, isn't it? How many do you know actually in East Africa?
KFC.
Can they fill up your arms if you start counting them? Java is not a franchise. It is a conventional brick and mortar model.
KFC and
all of them, all those that you mentioned are actually foreign. Which one? CJ Waikiki from Turkey, franchise.
What about CJ? CJ is from Uganda.
CJ is which one? Cafe Javas, Mr. Madera. She knows Mr. Madera, not a franchise. I've talked to Madera many times to franchise. So what I'm saying in short is that we are using the wrong models and expect to grow our economies. Okay? Yet each of those I wish I could go back to that slide. That slide where Agatha had, all those, ShopRite, Game, Carrefour, all of them are franchises. Because it's the easiest way to enter a foreign market. Okay? Now, out of that 3%, most of them are concentrated in South Africa and Egypt. South Africa has 857. This is of 2018. I haven't come across the latest data, 2019. But as of 2018, they had 857 franchise brands. And credit to Apartheid, 90% of these brands are homegrown brands in South Africa. 90%. Why? Because during apartheid, remember, they couldn't trade with the world.
Yeah.
They perfected their systems during that time. So when apartheid was removed, it was time to conquer Africa. That is why now you see everywhere you see South Africans come on the franchise model. So in the franchise industry, 857 brands, out of which 90% are local. And that has a lot of impact in terms of the economy. You know why? The minute we accept more foreign than local brands, like is the case in Philippines, where 70% are foreign and 30% are local. Or in Egypt, you can see 600 in Egypt. In Egypt, 60% are foreign, 40% are local. Where are you creating jobs? Don't forget that most of these franchises, foreign franchises, come in as a way to look for markets for their
Produce.
products. So basically, products are made in Turkey, LC Waikiki, yeah, and they come to sell them here. Where have you created jobs?
Turkey.
You have exported those jobs, and we are very happy going to LC Waikiki to buy, isn't it? We are creating jobs in Turkey. Where they make all their money, do they keep that money here or do they take it away?
Take it away.
So what are you saying? What are you helping our economies? Yeah? I'm one big proponent of buy Kenya, build Kenya. When I'm in Tanzania, is buy Tanzania, build. When I'm in Uganda, the same. Boo-boo. Yeah? There's that one in Uganda, we call it boo-boo. Yeah? But Uganda, build Uganda. Yeah? To a point where, at home, we have a policy at home. Go to a supermarket, if you're in Tanzania, we even work from Tanzania actually. So we're in Tanzania, go into any supermarket, and this is the order in which you buy things. Look for Tanzanian made goods first. If you can't get them, go to Kenya. If you can't get them now, go anywhere else. Now, that in itself explains why it is why it is the case that if you go to Mombasa today or Dar es Salaam port, out of 10 containers at the port, 7 are inward bound, 3 are outward bound. Only three of them will be holding exports, 7 of them are imports. Let's not go that route, people. So having said that, and by the way, I'll talk about this a bit more when it comes now to the potential impact of franchising, what will happen. So, what is the current environment in terms of franchising? And here I'm talking about, when I talk about this, don't think I'm talking about Kenya. Don't think I'm talking about East Africa. I'm actually talking about the whole of Africa except Egypt and South Africa. For one reason, I know very well. I've given you the history of franchising in South Africa in terms of apartheid and so on. In 2009, Egypt got some grant from African Development Bank and they built their franchising industry. Within 4 years, they already had 400 brands. Okay? I'll talk about that later. We have a similar project coming up. Now, currently, anywhere in Africa, actually, that is what there is, and there isn't. Number one, there are no strong franchise associations. Why are strong franchise associations necessary? In the countries where franchising has flourished, you are either regulated by the law, like in the US, or you are self-regulated through the franchise association. The World Franchise Council is the apex body of 45 franchise associations across the world. Out of those 45, only 11 have franchise-specific laws. Are we together? Only 11 out of 45 have franchise-specific laws. So franchise-specific laws might not be what you need to grow the sector. If you can create strong franchise associations, like South Africa actually doesn't even have doesn't even have franchise-specific laws. They rely on normal contract laws. They rely on what else? And the Consumer Protection Act, actually, where franchising has specifically been mentioned. Okay. But then, in order to grow the sector, what might we need in this area? There's what we call the Model Franchise Law issued by the World Franchise Council. Why does the World Franchise Council find it necessary to issue a model franchise law? Because they say it is not healthy to over-regulate the sector. So they say, should you want to have a law, here it is. Just customize it to your region, to your country. Okay? Minimum, there are very minimal areas that it addresses. But more importantly, even with that law, they say you really must develop your franchise associations, because that is where most of the regulation happens. So supportive registrations we have talked about. But more importantly, we also need to, but by the way, in terms of supportive registration here, the issue of policies also comes in. Yeah? In my mind, and I'll talk about that later, in my mind, I think it's necessary that we create, every country in East Africa or at EAC level, we have a franchise policy that will guide countries on how to actually do franchising. What are we talking about? The policy could specifically say, for example, yeah, when you come into the country as a franchisor, you must register at a certain place. Why am I saying this? Because today there is absolutely no data at all anywhere available about the franchise sector. Hakuna hata, nowhere. There isn't. Okay? So we need some centralized kind of correction point where you get that information. Now let's talk about I'll talk about more about that towards the end, but let's talk about the potential impact of franchising. What has franchising done in other countries that it can do here? There we go. Contribution of GDP to GDP. We have seen the contribution of the retail sector, 7.4%, isn't it? That's what we saw. Franchising has the potential to double this to 15%. In South Africa, for example, franchising contributes 15.75% of the country's GDP. 15.75% of the country's GDP comes from the franchise sector in South Africa. In terms of jobs creation, again, back to South Africa. The 857 outlets you see here have 45,011 franchise outlets. 45,011 franchise outlets. Okay? That makes it an average of what? Maybe 50 per, it's about 50 per brand. Eh? Are we together? Each of the franchise outlets employs 17 people directly. That's on average. 17 people. And another 25 people indirectly. So you can quickly do your mathematics and see what impact that would have. Assuming we can quickly grow this sector in the region to about 600 brands, even the whole other countries, yeah? And even assuming that we will not have as many outlets, just give each 25 outlets. We are saying we could easily be contributing towards jobs creation more in line with what South Africa has done. The area of poverty alleviation. There's a model we call micro-franchising. You may have seen it in practice, but you probably don't know what it is. Have you ever seen, those of you who have been to Dar es Salaam, you've seen Azam ice cream. It's like a guy who on a bike, eh? That is a whole business by itself. Okay? That's a cyclist, yeah, with a cooler here. Yeah? That is a whole business by itself. Even here, I think we have seen Farmer's Choice. I think I've seen some Farmer's Choice sausages. Yeah, isn't it?
Even that ice cream was
Even ice cream?
Yes.
was here, but they disappeared.
There you go.
It's there.
Now-
It's still there. It's still there.
They're still there.
It's still there.
Which one? That one also?
The ice cream.
The cycling.
Lions.
The cycling, eh?
Lions made, yeah.
Lions made used to do that many years ago?
They still do.
They still do?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there is cream bell. Or something.
Yes, and cream
Now-
bell as well.
Can you imagine if every manufacturer in this country, I know we are almost headed there. Can you imagine if every manufacturer in this country adopted that model, whereby we are saying you are a big brand, for example, Bidco, yeah, and now you are creating businesses through that model. How many jobs are you likely to, or how many lives are you likely to impact? Yeah. So very important. The other area here is skills transfer. In terms of skills transfer, franchising, remember I said tried, tested, and trusted brand. Already they are in business, they know what they are doing. But they are telling you, Modoni, come, we will train you. Before you go to ride that bike, they will train you in their systems, how to do that. So skills transfer is very quick in the franchising model. Then finally, formalization. Remember that slide? Remember this earlier slide? Here. Remember here? The informal sector, yeah? How do we, in franchising, you cannot actually run a franchise if you're informal. You cannot. So that's an area that requires attention in terms of formalizing the informal businesses for expanded tax corrections for government. Finally, in terms of what focus areas, or what areas to focus in, as far as EAC is concerned, some time back, I actually came up with a project aimed at raising the profile of franchising in East Africa. I call this project the Africa Franchising Accelerator Project. That's what you see there, AFRAP, Africa Franchising Accelerator Project. The project has several components. The first one is a baseline survey. We need to do a baseline survey across Africa, actually. In this case, starting with East Africa, to know what is happening in the market. We have no clue what is happening. Other than Uganda, where I've done commissioned by the Ministry of Finance in Uganda. I've done a baseline survey on the state of franchising in the country. But it needs to be updated. That was 2018. Once that is done, it becomes a barometer through which to measure growth from there. The next element is basically building a franchise-friendly environment. And I think I talked about it slightly here. Where we are saying we need a franchising policy, model franchise law, and the unit is actually called, what you see here is the International Institute for Unification of Private Law, UNIDROIT. It's the institution that issued a model franchise law that is adopted by the World Franchise Council. Then, and this is where we will actually make a lot of impact, we need to elevate franchising to the same level as a profession as is law, doctors, engineers, architects. We need to do that. That has happened in the US. As we speak, I am struggling to qualify as an ICFE, which is Institute of Certified Franchise Executives. If I had money, I would be in the US actually today. There is a big conference going on there where this year I was not able to go. Last year I was there. And when you go there, the credits you get, every 3 years you must be recertified as an ICFE. India has taken up that quickly, and they are growing their franchise sector like bushfire. Okay? So what we are saying here is that we need an act of parliament to establish the Institute of Certified Franchise Executives to guide growth of the sector. Then with this area of capacity building, as she rightly mentioned, Agatha, you will struggle to find a franchise consultant outside South Africa and Egypt. And if you find, you will come to me. And probably one more person that I know. So we need, when this sector grows, we will need to grow the resources. Because for example, if for example today, we were able to do, say, 100 businesses, to enroll 100 businesses to this project, I cannot be able to do that work alone. That's a fact. And even if I go to a friend, you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Even if I went to a friend, Mr. Gavin Bell of Kageras, if you remember Kageras? Yeah. He's trained the same way I'm trained. Okay, but even if we went to him, we are barely enough to grow this sector. We need many more people. So that's needed. Then the area of strengthening the franchise associations. When I was trained in 2011 in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, the consultant's exit strategy was form franchise association. So I formed the franchise association in Tanzania. There's a franchise association here, there's a franchise association in Rwanda, there's a franchise association in Uganda. But they only exist in books. They only exist on record. There's no office, there's no secretary, there's nothing. Why? Do you know? Do you know why they only? No, they're there. If you go to Brera in Tanzania, you go to. I know them anyway. By the way, I know all those people who registered. So, the reason why we are all dead as associations is one. Remember I said the rest of Africa is a franchise jungle. Foreign brands have absolutely no interest in joining a franchise association here. Why? Because they see this market as green. They want to play according to their rules, not to the international rules. When you do a franchise association, it must be done at the guidelines of the World Franchise Council. When I was registering in Tanzania, we got the Franchise Association of South Africa, where I'm actually also a member, to guide us on how to do it. So there is a code of conduct that you attach to the memorandum of articles and memorandum and so on to form part of it. And those people, those foreign guys, don't actually want to play by those rules because they see this market as a free range, a free for all. Okay, so we need to strengthen that. Then the other thing we need is to hold indigenous brands to start franchising, because it's these brands that will now become members of the founding members of the franchise. In order to join the World Franchise Council, for example, an association must have at least 10 members who are franchisors. And all these that you see here, the foreign ones, like in the KFC and so, are franchisees. They are not franchisors. So we need local businesses, franchise the Javas and so on, the Cafe Javas. We need them to start franchising to become members of the association. 10 of them, then you can join the World Franchise Council. Then, how do we take these small players, the micro players, to the international limelight? Something has happened in Kenya recently that is very, very encouraging. Under the Big Four agenda, housing.
Yeah.
Right now, the Juakali operators of Gekoba Market, Gong Road, where you buy seats there, you know them?
Yes.
Race course, and Kariobangi Right Industries have been aggregated into one branch by the government, and they have been given tenders to supply any woodwork, any smith, any chumas needed in the housing projects coming up with the government. Now that is the only way this guy on the streets will ever see the market in West Africa. And if you want to learn more about that, in the US, there's something called, you can even Google it, www.wholefoodsmarket.com. You know that, you may have seen it. Whole Food Market. I'm sure our boy knows that she's in retail. This is a supermarket. Like you enter into Carrefour, you are reading Whole Foods Market, but the brands in there are those little soaps made by the guy in Korogosho, yeah? Made by the guy in Remburu somewhere. All those brands are aggregated into one. So that's the only other way that we'll be able to take our people from here to the international markets. Then in terms of exports, these are normal occurrence as I mentioned, even I would be in the US in one of the expos and exhibitions and conferences. Then here, a quick way to grow the sector is actually to form franchise clubs. You know, the way like you have lottery, like, you form franchise clubs, where, we use that as a grassroots way of recruitment before they now come in and join the association. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all I had for you. I hope I've added value.